I'm delighted to be joined by Peter Lumsden, who in the Lancashire district, soon to be the North West England district, is a lay supervisor, part of the supervision implementation plan. So we're going to have a brief conversation with Peter about supervision. Peter, just introduce yourself to us. Who are you? Where are you? What do you do?
Okay, hello Phil. Yeah, I'm Peter Lumsden. I'm a local preacher within the Clitheroe circuit. Um, yeah, I've been a local preacher for 12 years. I worked for many years at the University of Central Lancashire, and now I'm retired from there. I find myself quite involved in partnership development between the faith sector and public sector. I joke or half jokingly say I'm keeping the F in the VCFSE. That's voluntary community faith and social enterprise sector.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter. That's a whole other video we could do.
Yeah.
We're talking about supervision today.
Yes.
Our districts have supervision implementation plans. Our ordained
Mm.
staff and an increasing number of lay staff are expected to be in supervision. How long have you been a supervisor, and what is that supervision experience and space like for you?
Yeah. So I'm coming to the end of 2 years of being qualified, if that's the right word, supervisor. Before that, I had a year when I was being supervised. I was sort of the equivalent, perhaps, of being on trial as a local preacher. Uh, and before that, there was a year of training. So I suppose I've been 4 years in the process, but 2 years, operating independently, as it were.
And
Yeah.
how do you find it, Peter? What is holding that space for ministers and lay people?
Yeah,
But what's
yeah,
that like? What's its purpose?
yeah. Well, I'll start off by saying I find it incredibly rewarding. Um, I went into it somewhat arrogantly, I think, thinking, oh yeah, I've done coaching. This is just going to be like coaching. And while there are elements of coaching, for example, I think the skills of listening, and questioning, and summarizing are there, it's much deeper than coaching. If you had a Venn diagram of coaching and spiritual direction and perhaps a bit of counseling, supervision touches on all of those, but it's a much deeper space, helping people to work through issues connected with the job or questions around discernment and their own sort of spiritual development. So, in coaching settings, I would never have said, so where's God in this? And that's sometimes a question that we throw in with supervision. It's also a much more creative process than coaching. Coaching is very sort of goal oriented, I think, and coaching is and supervision is a much gentler, more exploratory, but creative. And some of the tools and methods that we use in supervision allow that creativity and opening up new areas of thought and awareness.
I'm thinking about the training that you underwent for supervision and the support that you get as a supervisor because you're then in supervision yourself. So how does you being in supervision help you to
Yes.
fulfill
Well,
your role?
yeah, yeah. So I'm supervising four people, Phil, two ordained ministers, um, a deacon and a lay person. Yeah, and I myself have a supervisor, and that's incredibly helpful and supportive to talk through and share my own experience of being a supervisor. My supervisor is very experienced and he's able to open up new ways of me looking at things and to recognize, for example, that I think again different from coaching. I find when I'm supervising that there's often a resonance with what my supervisees might be talking about. I think, oh, that applies to me. I can learn from this as well. So it's not just one way, it's a two-way process. And I think the fact that it's been developed by the Methodist Church, I think is a credit to the Methodist Church. I think it's been done incredibly well, incredibly professionally. And that support that's there, the people, my supervisees all recognize the value of it. And the fact that I have a supervisor in turn, again, attests to that care that's been taken around this process.
Thank you, Peter. So you've shared with us that you have supervisees that are both ordained and you have some lay folk, and that's an interesting dynamic for you, I should imagine. But that reflects the fact that in the Methodist Church we have an increasing number of lay employees and our ordained staff who need to be in supervision. So we need an increased number of supervisors.
Yes.
So what would you say, Peter, to those who might be interested? What would you say to encourage them to think about it a little bit deeper and explore whether it's a possibility for them?
Well, as I've just alluded to, I find that it's really helpful for my own development. So I hadn't sort of appreciated that that might be the case when I started. So from a very selfish point of view, it's helpful for one's own discipleship and development. Secondly, it is really a crucial space, I think, for ministers who can often feel isolated. And this supervision space is somewhere that they can come to that they might not have it's a unique space for them. So it's valuable in that sense. And it's not something you don't have to be theologically, trained to do this. You have to have empathy, and you develop your skills of listening. But I've been surprised myself at how I do feel it's becoming more natural to me. So some of the tools we use, we sometimes visualize using a tool called Small World, where we put a cloth out and objects represent different people or different things. Yeah, I'm able now to think, oh yeah, that would be a good place to use Small World. Let's suggest that. Or chair work, where two individuals are represented sitting in the chair, and the supervisee swaps chairs. So one's confidence develops. And I think if you've been in a professional setting of any sort, or a manager of any sort, you've probably got many of these skills already. And it's a great way of making use of your life experience, almost a new lease of life, perhaps. And have a chat with your minister or your superintendent or the Reverend Phil Gough, who will be responsible for Ministry and Vocations in the new district, and supervision will come within his portfolio. It's a bit like becoming a local preacher. You might have an idea, yeah, this is something I could do. Well, explore it first with any of those people I've just named.
Peter, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your own experience of supervision. There are training courses for supervisors throughout the next connectional year. So there is an opportunity for those who might be interested to be nominated by their minister or superintendent minister or myself in the new North West England district. Peter, thank you for your time, and thank you for all that you do in supervision, your own supervision and the supervision you offer others. God bless you in all you do in the coming year.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Phil.